Welcome to the Five Keys Keeping Pace podcast. My name is David Purnett. I'm a consultant for Five Keys schools and programs. Since 2003, Five Keys has gone into prisons and provided high school diplomas to men and women who earn them. We have 1,200 employees all in California. We're proud of the fact that 7 out of 10 of our employees share the lived experience to those we serve. In other words, we have been incarcerated. I did 5 years, 9 months, 23 days, and 6 hours in federal and state prisons for a white-collar conviction. In this Keeping Pace podcast, we reach my formerly incarcerated brothers and sisters and anybody who has been impacted by the justice system. We'll share stories and inspiration. Let's talk.
Here we go. Hello, Sam.
Hey, good morning.
I can tell that I know this is not your first rodeo.
Oh, come on.
You've had a few, so if anybody's nervous, it's me. Okay, so here we go. Just want to thank everybody for joining today. Want to introduce Sam Lagana to the audience. Boy, Sam, I've known you either for 43 or 44 years. I'll never forget that time I met you at Pepperdine. I went to Pepperdine. Sam went to LMU. It's just gone on from there. We've also go to the same church, Corpus Christi and the Palisades, and so many years. Sam is, boy, I can't believe all the things that he's done. So here we go. I'll start with this. Sam's a graduate of LMU, and he got his MBA at Pepperdine. He was the youngest athletic director in all of California at the time. He was the athletic director. Either you were 26 or 28, Sam. How old were you at Cal State?
Yeah, like 26.
26 at Cal State Dominguez Hills. He was also the associate vice chancellor at Pepperdine University for years. He was the president and CEO of Notre Dame High School in Sherman Oaks, California. He's currently chairman of the John Wooden Award Program and Foundation. And the award program, for years, it has been the gold standard for the recipient of the Division I men and Division I women and basketball coach of the year. And the foundation, it is carrying the legacy of the winningest coach of all time, Coach John Wooden, who won 10 national championships in a 12-year period. The number 2 winningest coach of all time, for the audience sake, is Coach Krzyzewski, and he's won 4. And so there'll never be another Coach Wooden. Sam is runs that, and he is the chair of that entire foundation. It's just huge kudos to Sam. He was also inducted in the last 2-3 years to the Pro Beach Volleyball Hall of Fame. I was fortunate enough to be there. He's the stadium voice for the LA Rams, and I promise you, I'm not making all this stuff up. It's real. It's real. It doesn't end. He's currently chancellor of a brand new Catholic university called Catholic Polytechnic University in Los Angeles. And in terms of his background, it's been said that guided by his passion for positivity, connectivity, and community, Sam continues to make a lasting impact across sports, education, and civic life. I have left some out because we only have an hour. And Sam, I've said this to you before, and I truly believe it. I don't want to put you on the spot, but as an ex-athlete myself, I believe that you've accomplished as much in your career, truly as much as in your career as Chick Hearn did for the voice of the LA Lakers. And there's a statue in front of Crypto next to Magic Johnson or Kobe, and that's Chick Hearn. Sam, how in the world have you been able to achieve all of your success?
Wow, that's a heavy loaded question. I don't, Dave, I don't know that you ever know. And if you really get down to the scheme of things, and I feel blessed to have been surrounded by good people like yourself and so many others like Coach Wooden. And in a sense, if you are striving to be the best that you can be, that really helps any platform that is coming towards you, coming at you, that you can maybe affect. And I think that those things really, really work it out. I will say this, David, in my lifetime, and I've said this for decades, I would rather fail while trying to achieve success than wallow in mediocrity. So I'm more intimidated by mediocrity or failure, but I'd take the failure over I would take not doing anything. So you give it a go, right? And everything always doesn't necessarily work. But if you've been guided or you're looking and you're reading and you're being influenced by great people and the good book, I think things are going to come your way a little better off. I'm going to say this. There was a guy, Henry Van Dyke, who was he was a philosopher, he was a poet, he was a reverend, he was many things. And he said, 4 things a man must learn to do if he would make his life more true: to think without confusion clearly, to love his fellow man sincerely, to act from honest motives purely, to trust in God and heaven securely. And I think that leans in to what you're asking of me.
Right. Well, that's amazing. That's amazing, Sam. What role does God play in your personal life and your professional life?
God has a really nice position in that he's been with me since I was a pup, and I can lean on him and I can hold him in reverence and yet also hold him in confidence and hold him in hope and hold him in positivity and hold him in future. And you just try to recognize that there is a greater good and God is a part of it. I weave and I woven those kinds of things into not only my professional life, but my personal life. And I've always said, I don't really have a job, I have a lifestyle. And so everything I'm blessed to be able to do kind of weaves in and is woven into one another. And I think that that's a unique juxtaposition that many people have a hard time. They just want to compartmentalize this, compartmentalize that. And yet all of these things interweave, whether you have a family, whether you don't have a family, whether you have parents or your parents are in heaven or wherever you feel that they are, you have these things that are going on in your world, and you have to weave them in and bleed all the different things. So as I listen to the things that you say that I've been active with, yeah, they're beautiful, but they all sort of weave into one another. And by doing them over a long period of time, they just continue to get into life. And I think when people are trying to find a way, the best way is to not try to just compartmentalize it, but to say, okay, I've experienced this. I know this is not really the where I should go. So let me make sure I don't make that mistake again and weave myself into the other things that can give me faith, hope, and love and push those things forward and continually share those with others so that their faith in you and their trust in you comes forward. I've been very fortunate to have been reached out to try to help Catholic Polytechnic University, which, as you mentioned, is kind of a fresh started university. And we can offer 2 degrees right now, one in computer science for a bachelor's degree and one in computer science for a master's degree. So we're certified within the state of California. And once we have a graduating class, we can go through a different national accreditation kind of program. The concept of this school is to enable people who want to study in these models to be able to graduate debt-free. The approximate cost a year for an education is approximately $30,000. I can assure you that no one at Catholic Polytechnic University is paying $30,000 because we're offsetting those costs due to the generosity of donors. And David, it's just so important, and Karen, that we can bring people together, that they can offset those kinds of costs because people are trying to make it. And we don't want them to be burdened with a couple $100,000 once they're done. We want them to be able to finish, flourish, and expand and carry forth. But Catholic Polytechnic brings together the juxtaposition of faith and science, which there's not a lot of schools that are just focused on that. And so we're able to do that on an online kind of institution. So that does keep our operational costs much lower. We can now do things like this, Zoom together. We can have a professor who teaches at Stanford or MIT or Caltech come to a class that is much like a Zoom session and twice a week educate these young people on computer science and how faith can wind up and weave into this.
How did you get involved with the Wooden Foundation?
Huh. David, you played basketball when you were a little kid. Maybe Karen, you and your sisters and brothers all played sports back in
I
Indiana.
rebounded for David.
There you go. See, that's play, right? I rebounded for Chip. I didn't shoot much. I just
Chip
rebounded,
England.
right? So,
You talking about Chip England?
yeah.
Yeah.
My father passed away when I was young, and my mom reached out to a friend of hers that she played tennis with and said, "Hey, I got this kid that, needs something to do and I don't want him to get in trouble." And so I kind of went down and schlepped boxes for the Wooden Award that was just starting. And I was friendly with the folks who operated the Los Angeles Athletic Club Corporation. And they lived in my neighborhood and they owned some other properties. And so I got a job as a lifeguard at the swimming pool that they had that, was open to the public and their communities that they served. And I kind of worked at the clubhouse that they had. And then we would go down and play basketball at the LA Athletic Club once in a while when we were younger. And so I just kind of got involved, if you will. But later in life, so while I was at Loyola Marymount, I still worked down in Marina Del Rey at one of their operations and stayed in touch with Steve Hathaway, who was the general manager and so forth. And his family had started this legacy back in 1880. And so it had been carrying on in Los Angeles, these different clubhouses and places for people to build their physical strength, their mental strength, and their social strengths. And so I was blessed to have been in that. And it was just down the hill from Loyola Marymount and Marina Del Rey. So I worked as a lifeguard. And if they needed me in the snack bar, I'd grill up burgers, or if they needed me to move furniture, I just did what I was asked to do. And paid handsomely, like at $2.15 an hour back in that day. And just did it. But I stayed in touch with Steve all those years. And then Steve took on the Los Angeles Athletic Club properties. And he called me while I was at Cal State Dominguez Hills and asked me if I would be interested in coming up to the athletic club to kind of steward the athletic club experience for sports and so forth. And I said, do I get to work on the Wooden Award? He said, of course. In fact, that'll be in your area of operation. And Duke, the 80-year-old founder of the Wooden Award and Coach Wooden's friend, will be reporting to you. So I don't know how many people have had an 80-year-old legend reporting to them, but it's very interesting when you're in your 30s and you're trying to sort of bring modern things to somebody who knows that change is hard.
Right.
And you don't know that change is hard. When you're in your 30s, you're just trying to like, hey, let's go forward. Let's go do this. And we could do it. And you don't really explain to your buddies. You just grab the women and men around you and you go, let's go. And everybody goes, yes. And then if it works, great. And if it doesn't, you go, I'm not going there again. I'll go that way. With this, an 80-year-old guy who is well thought, well respected, well regarded, you learn how to be more patient. And when his best friend is John Wooden, you really learn all that. But I was raised under Wooden, and he was down the street at UCLA, so I got to witness this. You guys in Indiana, when you were growing up, you had some incredible teams and incredible players back in that era. They still do. Braden Smith just being drafted in the second round and going to go play for the Pacers now. Another outstanding kid out of Purdue, like John Wooden was. And John Wooden came out of Purdue University and then went to Indiana State where he coached first and then came out here to UCLA. And then he had that incredible run. But really what he created was this pyramid of success. And how do you become successful? And the two.
Can you expand a little bit on what that is, what the pyramid of success is, Sam?
It's that. That's John Wooden, and I could see that it is not. There it is. Um, but the pyramid of success is sort of a route to saying that success is a peace of mind attained only through self-satisfaction by knowing that you were making the best effort to do the best of which you're capable. And Coach
Mm,
Wooden says, if
yeah.
you follow this ledger and you start with industriousness and enthusiasm, friendship, loyalty, self-control, and cooperation, those things help you build from the bottom up of the pyramid so that you are working your way to obtaining this complete level of success. But these are all building blocks as he put together. And we're creating an educational program, and our hope is to distribute hundreds of these complimentary to people that want to learn how they can move through life a little bit better. And you use that word that you used earlier, success. So people can go to woodenswisdom.com and they can find all of this, or they can go to Wooden Award Foundation, which is the nonprofit foundation, and it's on there, and that takes you to Wooden Wisdom, and you can dig into the thinking and the thoughts of John Wooden, which really they make such a difference in people's lives.
I have always heard about the pyramid of success because I think of growing up in Indiana, having David as my big brother, and I
Physically,
thought
spiritually, and by age, right?
completely, exactly,
Right.
exactly. And I thought his high school basketball coach came up with the 4 Ds. It's so funny. I just thought that was Coach Licklater. But it's amazing to me that it is 70 years old, or something close to that. And
Yeah,
in
77.
77 years old, and it has obviously stood the test of time, but especially when you consider all of these stories of overnight success and people being discovered. And when you read this, I have it on my desk. I mean, when you look at this and you try to live by it, it's the building blocks. It's not an overnight success kind of thing. It is like step by step, you do these things and they build upon each other. I think it's absolutely remarkable that it has survived and continued to have so much influence over people.
Yeah.
That's a great observation, and I'm glad, Karen, that you had that experience of being in it. Within Wooden's Wisdom that you can go to here, there's applicational exercises, how to be true to yourself, right?
Wow.
How you can work through these kinds of things. And it talks to you in great quotes like, this above all, to thy own self be true, and it must follow as the night the day. Thou
Mm.
canst not then be false to any man. That's coming from Hamlet, right? So that's Shakespeare's writing, that he weaves in these different kinds of things and then asks people to challenge themselves on core values. So it's really a wonderful way for self-improvement. You can dive in so many different ways. He changed it like 26 times, always fine-tuning it before his
Mm.
death. But now we have it, and Wooden's Wisdom continues to provide it.
You have already made such a huge impact through the graciously donating on behalf of the Wooden Foundation these Pyramid of Success, really beautiful items that you just showed, as well as Coach Wooden's 2 sets of 3s, back and forward kind of business card type thing, 5 keys, which is we were the first school chartered school in the United States to go into the prisons in 2003 and provide high school diplomas for those folks that earned them. And we provide soup to nuts services because these folks have been so marginalized for so long, and the incarcerated men and women, they need everything. And so one of the things I do, Sam, as you know, and Karen knows, I go into the Valley State Prison, and 3 months before male is paroled, approximately, I take him through a 10-week reentry program, everything from building a resume and a cover letter to actually, we have contracts with Caltrans all across the state, getting them a job interview before they leave. In between, just a lot of very motivational presentations. And just give you an example, someone leaving prison in the state of well, it's all over the country, without a job, there's a 67% chance he or she will go back to prison without a job. I've, I'm now on my seventh cohort. We've had 84 graduates, and we have a 12% recidivism. And the cost to house a prisoner in California is approximately $130,000 a year. So not only does it, if you do the math, it just saves so much money, but it's and what I've done for the 2 years that I've done this, I've included a lot of coaches' quotes. And one of the things that I've included and talked about were the 4 Ds to success from Coach Wooden in this order: desire, dedication, discipline, and drill. These guys, they all have the desire. They all have the desire, but because of their situations, a lot of them don't have families. They don't have a two-parent household, etc. growing up. They don't have the roadmap for the other 3 Ds: dedication, discipline, and drill. And so I, thankfully, because of your donation on behalf of the Wooden Foundation, Sam, I presented the Pyramid of Success. I can't begin to tell you. It has by far been the most popular thing, been something they've just jumped onto. And then for the next cohorts, with the foundation's approval, I'll be walking these in. We had 20 guys that signed up, and 15 are currently in. But I went around and had each participants, and there we go. That's the card. It's just amazing, front and back, laminated, just beautiful. And I had them read, let's say, competitive greatness. Competitive greatness, be at your best when your best is needed, enjoyment of a difficult challenge, and then etc. And then when everybody was finished reading, I asked them, well, what does that mean to you? I'm not surprised because I grew up with this. When I played basketball in high school back in Indiana, it was very, very common for a coach to be a student of Coach Wooden, just because it was in his backyard and all this. And so we were at our high school as well. But it's so foundational for these men, so incredibly instructive, and a reference manual. And that's why it's so great that they're laminated. They can take forever with them and use. So just want to thank you tremendously. The other thing I wanted to tell you, Sam, is that the reason that I want to interview you is that there's something about you that just radiates a tremendous amount. And I say this with a lot of respect and appreciation for who you are as a person. Love. You're in a state of love, and I feel that it's through God. And I think a lot of us aren't as comfortable talking about that. But I can tell you, from being incarcerated for 5 years, 9 months, 23 days, and 6 hours myself, I know what got me through prison, and it was God. I thought I had a great relationship with God. I was raised Catholic. I'm very proud of my religion, but it took on a whole new level. I want to bring you in the prison, Sam. I want you to talk to these guys. There's an overlap in exactly what you've done with your whole career and what we're doing at Five Keys, going in and trying to make a difference in lives, one life at a time. That's what you do. That's what I've observed you doing for the 43 or 44 years that I've known you. So I just want to thank you tremendously for opening up the Wooden Pyramid of Success, and through these different slides. You can look at this, the peak: competitive greatness. True competitive greatness requires competitive goodness. That's Sam Lagana, okay? That's your
Mm.
quote, Sam. So I know there's a lot that I don't know, but I tell you, you're a super good man. I want to ask you some random questions because you're just like a super interesting guy. Who is the most interesting person you've met? And I know you've met a ton of them.
Wow, that's a question I don't ponder
Yeah.
often. Um, I want to go back to what you were saying, and I'm grateful for your kind comments, but I want to let you know that I put that slide up about ability may get to the top, but character is really what keeps you there. And David, that's what's working for you is your character. And you are staying committed to that. And now you're showing that in working with other men on how they can improve their character. And that's powerful. And so those are the kinds of things that we all have to work our way through, right? And how you're doing it may be different than how I do it, how Karen Wolf does it, how other people do it, but you're doing it in a great way. And when so you look at your question, I kind of look back, I mean, I've been so blessed at the people whom have come into my company. And when I say company, not business, but into my life, into my world. Um, and as I'm talking through this, in a sense, thinking about who these all are, I mean, how blessed am I to have been exposed to John Wooden? How blessed am I to have been exposed to some great actors, or how many good leaders, or how many knuckleheads?
Right.
I mean, even the knuckleheads are
Right.
helpful, right? Like you don't really think about it. Okay, that's a knucklehead. But you learn because knuckleheads are not idiots, right?
Right.
They're just not always making good decisions. When I start to think about who I think is one of the more interesting people I've ever met, I almost have to go back to my grandfather, who really was an immigrant, right? Like as a boy in 1900, the year 1900, came to the United States by hiding on a boat in southern Italy and coming to America at a time when Italians coming to America were heavily discriminated against. And my grandfather recognized that their community was somewhat oppressed where they lived in southern Italy. And the only way that he felt there was hope was to come to this great place called America and to get onto a boat and try to find a way where he could come to America, start a family and raise a family in a different environment than the way he was raised in a large family, which was not a bad thing, but he came here. And so I learned so much from him, even though I only had him in my life till I was about 21. But my grandfather was well into his 80s when I was born. So like you and Karen come from a large family, my father came from a large family of 9 kids. And he was the youngest surviving child. He's also the first to have died of all of his siblings at 49. But my grandfather lived till he was 99, and he lived by himself. And a lot of that probably came from strength. So your question as to who influenced you, or who, when I look at my grandfather, it's amazing because he wound up self-teaching himself all of these different languages when he came to America because he was working on the railroad. And when working on the railroad, he had to work with the Germans and the Polish and Mexicans and Puerto Ricans and Hungarians and French and all these people, in English and Americans, all these people of different languages and different cultures. And he wound up being a foreman on this railroad because he learned these different languages and could go out and talk to the leader of each of these different groups. And they could then work together as a team to build then the Pennsylvania Railroad and work. And he raised his family and, made things work, he and my grandmother, and stayed true. And they lived blocks from the train station and they helped build railroads. And all my uncles, I should say, worked on the railroad. None of my aunts really ever drove a car. They lived a pretty humble experience. So his influence of coming and staying with me as a boy, because my father worked in the defense industry. He's the only one of his brothers that didn't really work on the railroad. It didn't work for him because he had been sick as a boy. And so he couldn't do the physical manual labor that his brothers could do. And so he went to school. And by going to school, he got an education and he learned about computers before anybody else really knew about computers. And then this guy named Howard Hughes hired him to come design a computer center here in California. So he offered my mom the opportunity to marry him. She was a school teacher. They came west, and he worked in designing a computer center down below Loyola University in Los Angeles off of Jefferson, which was the Hughes Defense Industries headquarters at that time. And so that's how he came here. Then my grandfather would come out to visit, and he would live in my bedroom because we lived in a very humble, you know, home, small home, uh, three bedrooms, if you will, home. And I shared the bedroom with my grandfather when he would come stay with me for 3 months of the year, and learned just a ton from him. And so, and then he outlived my father um, by almost 10 years. But my grandpa really was really important to me because he really gave me faith and love, and by the way, he also gave me the belt and soap in the mouth. Those are other things I got because I learned lessons of what was right, what was wrong, and if I broke the threshold, there was a penalty. And so I learned that, you can be penalized for things like that.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say has been your biggest success, Sam?
Ha! I don't know. Maybe my marriage and my children. That's 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 what's really important. I can look at my grandson and I can see that he's a good little guy, and look at my daughters and see that they're good people. And really, those are the legacies. I mean, I've been blessed that I've been able to have some influence on people and in places, and I'm grateful for people who've recognized those things. But really, I'm the one that gets to recognize that my daughters are beautiful people that are intelligent, that are hardworking, and my wife and I contributed to that. It's not all me, by sure. When I look back, I guess that's really the thing, that they're able to thrive and have a good sense of self and a good heart and good faith and great love.
Great. Great.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, so what are you doing hanging out with David all
We've had
these
some
years?
good times, Karen. I mean,
I know.
really good times. David's this bright guy that puts together and has put together amazing situations for people. And while he mentioned that he had some time where he was incarcerated, that is a blip on his screen when you look at how big the screen is and how much goodness is in the screen. And so I talked about being penalized for something that I did, that maybe I got a slap on the wrist with a belt on the backside or soap in the mouth. David's penalty was what he stood up to and took through. But I knew David before that, and I stayed with David through that, and I've seen what David has had to go through. So, I think that David has just done an amazing job, and what he's trying to do today is really the success story, and to look at, the happiness of his granddaughter, and to see how things are going, and the love that he has for his daughter, and the love that he had for his wife, and the love that he has for you as his siblings. Those are what's most important, and the love that he has for these men that he's working with today. There's 5 keys he's so passionate with, and he wants to see everybody thrive and succeed, from his coworkers to his supervisors to the men that he is influencing in these cohorts. And so that drives me to want to hang out with him.
Oh God, that's so beautiful. It's a remarkable thing, and not everyone stayed by David through that. And as I've heard him explain on this podcast a few times, that some people are just so afraid to be near somebody who was incarcerated. I kind of felt that way too. It's almost like it's contagious. You're afraid to encounter it. Obviously, it says a lot about your character too.
Well,
Sam,
thanks.
I appreciate your friendship tremendously, and what I've found through my experience with the men and women that I've experienced, a similar, what we call lived experience, we've been incarcerated, is that a lot of families are broken, a lot of friendships go away, and so your friendship is beyond enduring, Sam, and I just really consider you a great friend, and I appreciate our friendship tremendously. But what do you think Coach Wooden would think about his pyramid of success being disseminated in prisons?
Well, I think that it's disseminated. I think that he necessarily wouldn't judge, one over any other situation, whether who it's going to. If it's helping somebody have a
Right.
better life, I really think that that's what drove him to do it.
Yeah.
And, obviously a lot of it was about the young men that he was influencing as basketball players. And many of them could recite the entire pyramid and
Yeah.
everything. I mean, their commitment to it is unreal. I mean, look at Bill Walton, God rest his soul. But Bill Walton just would pontificate on this thing over and over and over.
Yeah.
And yet those two had conflict early on. I mean, Bill Walton getting dragged into the police stations during Vietnam War protests, and growing his hair out and doing things like that. And like, I'm jealous. Like, I'm looking at this thing and like mine's thinning and it's silvering. And David, you still have this giant block of hair. So like Walton was getting like this, and some days I look like Doc Brown from Back to the Future. Here, and Walton had that same problem. You don't have that problem. So what we have to do is we have to get everybody thinking, how can I be successful? And it doesn't matter what my hair really looks like. How do I treat people? And how do we
Somehow David's the only one in our family who doesn't have gray hair. I don't know what he does, but I know it's not chemical.
Well, if it was going to be gray, it probably would have happened about 5, 6, 7 years ago. But any day now. Sam, where do you see yourself? My last question, in 5 years.
Oh, that's a great question. I don't do that, David. I really don't. I don't really go, oh, I
Yeah,
don't have an end mark. Like, I don't really set those kinds of, I think you have to have goals, but I think the way our world changes so fast, right? But it's all going to be different in 24 hours than it is right now. So I need to like focus on what can I do now for tomorrow to make today better and tomorrow better. And if I keep focusing on tomorrow, then something down the line will happen. If I could say to you, yes, I would like to be a participant in what John Wooden's vision was of having this pyramid distributed free to all these people. But also, if I could help the vision of Duke Llewellyn, if I could help the vision of David Burnett, if I could help the vision of George Pepperdine or St. Ignatius of Loyola, or if I can help advance other people's things, that's great. That quote, I wasn't putting that quote up because my name was in it earlier. I was putting it up because I wanted you to see the other quote that John Wooden. But in talking about competitive goodness, it's something I recognize that we all have to have is goodness that pushes us forward. And
right.
so goodness is competitive. I'm not in competition with you. We're lighthouses, right? You and I are lighthouses of goodness. That's what we want to be. I'm not in competition with you. A lighthouse is not in competition with another lighthouse. It's guiding people to safety and moving them
Right.
along the water. But I'm in competition with myself constantly to be good. I got to make a decision every day, every moment, all the time. How do I be good? Am I good all the time? I'm not so sure. Certainly, I am not perfect by any means. I make mistakes all the time. I make less mistakes than I made before. But we just all have to keep moving. So what do I want to be doing in 5 years? I just want to be able to tell you that I'm going to have a plan for the next day, and what that next day, how I'm going to be a better friend, a better grandfather, I want to see my community, which was affected by this fire so tremendously. I want to see that come back, but I have to contribute today to make that happen tomorrow. I'm only hopeful that I can influence those, that the ethos, the heart and the soul of what we're doing gets onto these people so that goodness is what they want to put in. Because I can tell you what my community will have in 5 years that it doesn't have today. It'll have fiber optics, because we were on copper dial-up it'll have 8 new elementary schools. It'll have 3 new grocery stores. It'll have 7 new churches and temples, because all this stuff burned down. But goodness and strong ethos with positivity is what's going to get all that done.
Was your house burned down?
Burned, but not burned down.
Yeah.
But everybody around me is burned down. School,
Yeah.
the neighbors. Like, we have a couple of houses that are standing but we had to fix them and remediate them. And, there's a lot of toxicity in the air. And now we're seeing every day, you see a new blade of green grass. I'd like to see my lawn have more green grass because it burned too. I lost 82 trees and 72 shrubs and my lawn in one area, but the one lawn that got nailed the worst, it just isn't coming back. And I water it every day, and I'm paying the city of Los Angeles a ridiculous amount of money for water. And it's just not working. I think I'm going to have to scrape it and
Yeah.
start anew. But it is what it is, right? Like, there are way worse things in the world than my lawn. So I could sit here and look up at the hill and see green grass. I could see a palm on a palm tree. I could see the sunset. I could see the sunrise. Let's go.
And you see the beautiful ocean too, Sam.
I do like the ocean. That's an infinity. That's that whole thing of it's never ending, David. There's no 5 years on the ocean.
I get it.
It's always going.
I'm with you, Sam. Well, listen, Sam, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you more than anything for two things. Your selfless giving to the community that you live in and all throughout Los Angeles. I've just really never seen anybody quite like you in terms of what you do in such a selfless and loving way. And I also thank you for your friendship. Look forward to many, many, many more good times with you.
I got one more thing. I'm thankful for all these folks that have come out of incarceration and come back to the workforce and really try to put good things first. And right now, the World Cup is happening here in Southern California, and the world is getting to see SoFi Stadium. It's SoFi Stadium here in Los Angeles where the Rams play. And I'm grateful, David, because that is the most amazing stadium in the world, and the world is getting to see that. But a lot of that was put together by men and women who came out of incarceration and came back to work and got to work in the workforce and build that. And they were a part of that success story that we can now talk about as we head into this World Cup, into next year's Super Bowl, and the following year, the Olympics, when opening ceremonies are in that building. There are going to be men and women that have come out of incarceration that changed their lives, that give a focus, and they helped complete something that is the most amazing building in the world, maybe the ninth wonder of the world.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. It was that through a like a workforce development program, or how did that happen?
Mr. Kroenke and Kevin Demoff, Mr. Kroenke owns Kroenke Sports Entertainment. Kevin Demoff is the president. At the time, Jason Gannon was the head of the Hollywood Park Development Program, along with Otto Malley, and those guys all put together the teams, working with different constituencies, that being one, and also some unions and people in the city of Inglewood and people in the community. And so in Los Angeles, and there are still people today that are coming from those kinds of experiences that we don't know about, because you don't have to wear a badge that says, "Hey, I'm out," right? Like,
right.
You just continue to be a good person, and you get hired and you move forward.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Well, I had no idea, Sam. Thank you for sharing that.
So I'm grateful for people like that are trying to make a difference. And there's a lot that are making that a great experience for people all over the world as they're coming in and seeing it. And they're going to keep seeing it for the next couple of years, with the Super Bowl coming back to LA and then the Olympic Games in 2020.
I want to thank the audience for joining. And that's all we've got going on today. Bye-bye.
Peace be with you both. God bless.
Bye.